If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes gravity. Choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stagnant, he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about the team. Wait.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We are live. You know the drill. Retweet this show out on Twitter. Make sure you shoot share buttons on Facebook, like buttons, share buttons. And then over on the YouTube page, you click the subscribe button, thumbs up button. Head over to the YouTube page if you want to interact with the show. Best place to put the comments in the comment section there so we can bring them up on the screen and react to them live on the show. That's what we do here. We react to your comments. We have great discussions every single morning. This is Monday, Overreaction Monday here on DSM Media. So, you know, we got a lot to overreact to, but be realistic as well with. I am Phil Stuff, your host, Happier to Knowledge on Twitter. Make sure you follow. And I'm joined on Monday always by my two main men here, Jason Voorhees, who's sitting right next to me over here at Mustang3651, and Mark Moscatelli at Mark with a C with a whole bunch of underscores underneath it. Good morning, gentlemen. Hope you all had a great weekend.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, great weekend.
It takes a little time to get you boys woken up and, you know, get you guys in your role.
Yeah, I'm not. I got to be honest. I am
get you guys
not
rolling
awake
here
today. So
I was tired. As soon as it said live, I woke up. You know, just the instant wake up call there. But we got lots to talk about today. So on the agenda today, guys, the first topic we're going to discuss: are the Phillies giving us a false sense of hope with their 5-2 road trip that they just completed, 6-3 in their last 9 games? We're going to talk about that, and that's going to be probably the crux of the show. We're also going to talk, because I know Mark hasn't had a chance to come on and talk Sixers yet. And then Friday, Daryl Morey spoke with the media, so did Doc Rivers. And basically, if you listen to his interview, they're basically just going to run it on back. It's basically the crux of that conversation. So I can't wait to talk about that as well. That'll be the second half of the show today. Can't wait to get Mark's feelings on the whole Sixers collapse and stuff like that. I do want to just give a shout out real quick before we I have a couple shout outs. First off, my man Kyle. I'm dedicating the show to my man Kyle, high school friend of mine, going through a lot right now. So, you know, I know he watches sometimes when he can. Shout out to you, man. I hope you're feeling better today. Hope today's a good day for you, my friend. And secondly, Buffalo and the people of Buffalo. Dude, I was so busy this weekend. I did not turn on my phone, the news, anything. I got home from work at about 9 o'clock on Saturday night. Turned on the TV. It just happened to be on CNN. And I saw what happened in Buffalo. And, guys, I don't know about you, but I just don't know how this kind of stuff keeps happening in the world. And it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of sad. And I feel bad for the people of Buffalo, really bad.
I mean, it's an unthinkable tragedy. And, you know, once again, we don't get into political things on this show, but I will say that it's unacceptable anymore for the government to stand back and not do anything when these shootings continue to happen. Like, there has to be some kind of gun reform, and I'm not getting into that war with people about saying take guns away, but there is no reason for guys like you and I to be carrying around assault weapons. There's absolutely zero reason. Assault weapons belong in the military, and that's it. And I will say it. So.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I don't understand what this world is coming to. And Jason, I got to be honest with you. One of the first persons I thought about was you, because you work in the supermarket industry, and that's where that occurred. And you probably had at one point active shooter training at work. One of the first things that I've learned in the first day of training at my current job is active shooter training. Think about that for a second. Active shooter training.
When I worked on cruise ships, there hasn't been a terrorist takeover of a cruise ship since 1985, but they still put you through terrorist takeover training on cruise ships, even though it hasn't happened in 35 years. Do you imagine being a 22-year-old guy going to work on a cruise ship? It's your second day on a ship, and the training video and program you're going through is what to do in a terrorist takeover.
Well, Mark just nailed it because, I remember back in high school, like the very first drills that we would go through were fire drills. Fire drills, right? He's absolutely right. The first training that they give associates is not fire drills. It's not how to handle, safety. It's active shooter training. Like that's the first training. So if that doesn't tell you the issues, I don't know what can. So you're right.
Can I let you in on a little secret, guys? Neither of you guys have children. I do. Probably 3 or 4 times a year, my kids go through active shooter training in school, and they have to disclose it. And they do like full-on drills with police there and firefighters there. It's a, excuse my language, a fucked up world we live in right now. I am pro-gun, actually. However, I would never own a gun, but we have to find a way to limit having firearms in the hands of people like this gentleman that did this shooting. I mean, and all the warning signs were there, and I'm not going to label this guy as mentally ill. I'm going to label him as a terrorist. I mean, it's basically what he did. All the signs are there, and people did nothing from his family, his friends, his community.
Brings up you guys talking about gun laws and stuff like that. I'm like you, Mark. I'm pro-gun. I would never also own a gun. But it's also part of the. You say this was all the signs were there on his social media. He live streamed it on Twitch, which this show airs on Twitch every single morning. It was live streamed on Twitch, but all his, his thought process, his agenda, it was all on social media. How did this not get stopped? How did him pulling into the parking lot not get this stopped quicker? And it's gun reform. It's social media reform. There's so much reform that is needed. It's kind of, it breaks my heart. It really does.
Yeah, I just want to clarify because you guys both said you're pro-gun. I'm pro-gun. I actually am a hunter, and I own multiple guns. But my theory is, or my thought is, I'm not saying ban guns. I'm not saying that. That's the opposite extreme. But what I am saying is there absolutely has to be stronger rules regarding purchasing guns. That's why so many of these folks get them, because there's no laws, or the laws are very lenient, or they don't look at the right things. And a lot of it is that there is a lot of mental health issues involved too, because a lot of times you see these people, but you're right. It's not even just the rules and laws. It's actual people taking action, because like Mark just said, family members did nothing. Friends did nothing. Like if you see signs, you have to, in my opinion, you have to act. You have to, there has to be, and like I said, it just never seems like there's ever enough action at the top. And what I mean by that is, like I said, I'm not political, but the government does nothing. Like you have these school shootings and you have all these people come out and, whoever's the president at the time will say, we have to do something. We have to do something. And then like 3 months later, you don't even hear about it. And that's every time. It's every single time. Like sometimes, like when is somebody going to take a stand?
I didn't want to make this a whole long thing, but we're talking about it, so we're going to keep going on this here. It's kind of a stupid comparison, but you say, the people that are responsible, how did they not do anything? And I bring it back to the finale of Seinfeld. And I'm trying to, make this an easier conversation, but they went to jail because they didn't do anything about a crime that was happening. The people that knew that this could happen are just as culpable. There were 5 or 6 people watching the live stream as it was going down. Those people are just as culpable. Maybe not to the extent because they didn't pull the trigger, but the fact that they did nothing about it and they encouraged it by watching it encourages other people to do it. And so the other people that know about this or see the signs or that let it happen should be held just as culpable, of this happening. Because
Conspiracy to commit murder. I would haul their parents' ass in jail. I would label him a terrorist and send him to Guantanamo Bay. And I would those Twitch people that were watching, aiding and abetting. I listen. I'm not an attorney or a prosecutor, but I'm just throwing this shit out. Here's the deal with our country. If you had a room of kindergarten children wiped out by an AR-15 and we've done nothing, I don't know what is going to change this country's thought on weapons and how they're used and these school shootings. But like, if that didn't move the needle, what is? What's and it's weird to say it. And do they have to go into like the White House? Do they have to go into the Senate chambers and wake people up for them to catch attention? I mean, they kind of did that on January 6th.
I was going to say January
nothing
6th.
happened.
Hold on a second.
What happened?
Deep here on the political talk. I think that happened. They just weren't successful.
Dude, again, we lived in a fucked up time, in a fucked up world, and I don't know what I don't have an answer. I have an answer, but you don't have enough people to go along with that answer. For owning guns, not only I think they should screen better, but they should license you like you license to be like a CDL driver, where you have to have a physical and you have to get it renewed every 2 years or whatever it is, and you have to take tests. And if none of that stuff checks out, you lose your license.
Listen, I believe in the right to bear arms. As I said, I own like 6 guns, but I don't own an assault rifle. I don't need an assault rifle to hunt. I can use a regular standard rifle. I can use a handgun to hunt. They should ban assault rifles at this point. That's and I know that's like I said, it's a controversial thing to say. I believe it because I think something like that has to happen. I'm not saying it's going to stop the shootings, but 90% of these shootings that happen, these mass shootings, happen with assault rifles, not a standard rifle or a handgun. And an assault rifle can do a lot more damage in a quicker amount of time. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no reason. Military folks use assault rifles. That's fine. Military should have assault rifles. Johnny, you, me, any your random normal person should not have an assault rifle.
Listen, if I were to,
you triggered me there, Jason, with something, but not a the air thing.
It didn't come out. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about there, Jason.
Okay, my point is, you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. This is not a laughing matter. Anybody that's just tuning in for it's just something between me and Jason off the air. It was funny.
Yeah, I that went over my head.
Right over your head, Mark.
If I were to choose to own a gun, and I probably will never, I would own a shotgun, because all you got to do is break into somebody's house and you hear that click click. Any rational human being is going to leave your premises once they hear that click click. Right. And I would. And honestly, it gives you a room for error. You don't have to be pinpoint accurate because it sprays. And I'm not the most accurate person when it comes to a lot of things. So, but I wouldn't put myself in that. I just don't trust myself owning a firearm. And the flip side is my son, who is in Scouts, is very pro gun, and he shot guns at the gun club. He's shot bow and arrows. He's kind of into that stuff, not aggressive stuff, but with respect. That's the good thing with the Scouts do. So, but it's screwed up world we live in, guys. I
didn't mean to spend a big section of our show talking about it, but I felt like
we just spent 15 minutes, dude. let's get into some lighter stuff.
Let's get into the more fun stuff. The Phillies, because they're fun, right? They're fun again. Okay, so the Phillies, unfortunately, they blew the game last night. 4-3 or 5-4 loss to the Dodgers. But overall, I know Jason and I were talking last week. I had them going like 2-5 on this West Coast trip. I think Jason might have said 3-4, maybe. They went 5-2 in 7 games against Seattle and the Dodgers. Now, it was nice. I mean, if you want to go back even further, they're 6-3 in their last 9 since the back-to-back rainouts against the Mets. Is the current formula that the Phillies are using, which is just out-hitting their opponents, is the formula of how they've won the last, 5 of their last 7 games, is this stretch sustainable? That's the question. Because, I don't see it. I think Joe Girardi has kind of sort of saved his job, at least for the time being. Things are kind of going well, but I think it's a false sense of hope at this point with this Phillies team. So, Jason, we'll start with you because I know you're really into the whole they're streaky team, and you say that all the time. Is this sustainable, and how long is it sustainable for?
I mean, to answer your question, I don't believe it is sustainable. It's sustainable to a point. And what I mean by that is exactly what you said. It's funny because I know I bring it up every single time, but it's so true. And I got to admit, this is exactly what I expected with this team. Because they'll have those streaks where, they can't hit the right side of a barn. And then all of a sudden, like now you see them like, they're just hitting everything. I mean, the other night they had 20-some hits or whatever it was. And they're putting runs up like candy. But the problem is that when you have streaks tend to go longer on the lower end. So like guys will struggle a lot longer and they'll get hot, but it won't last for like 3 or 4 or 5 weeks as a team. But certain individual guys can have, super long hot streaks. And we see it with Bryce Harper. I put out a tweet yesterday that, he's basically beating last year's numbers at the same time. And this is exactly around the time when he got his first injury and was out, when he got hit in the forearm. Then he had a back injury, and he also, obviously he went on the IL twice. Bryce Harper, I mean, here's my thing. I am so glad that we have the DH and he's playing. But the other part of me is concerned that if he continues to play with this injury, that it's going to completely tear and then he's going to be out for the season. That's my only fear. And I keep thinking that in the back of my mind. Like, he's such a great player and he's so important to this team. But is it worth the numbers when you know that this team realistically is not going to compete for a World Series? Is it worth letting him trot out there? Or do you put him on the IL for 10 days and let him, like, I don't know if 10 days will heal it.
10 days is not going to heal it, yeah. From what I know of UCL tears, and it is a tear, it's not just like a strain. He's going to miss, if you get it fixed the right way, it's a year. He won't be back to the start of next season. If it tears any worse, you might not see him the rest of this year or all of next year.
Yeah, that's bad.
So a UCL tear, Mark, maybe you'll remember, there was a Phillies pitcher in the last 5 or 10 years. I think that a UCL tear. I forget which one.
Was it Sir Anthony?
Sir Anthony. And he missed a good 18 months with it. Sir Anthony had the UCL tear. And they tried to get him to maintain him through it at first. Then his velocity dipped. Then he went on the IL. He missed the end of his rookie year, and he missed all of last year with it. So it's a long process to come back from UCL tear. And I did want to bring that up. And, the DH is saving Bryce Harper. But at this point, if you don't fix it, he's basically going to be the DH for the rest of the season. And there's nowhere around that. Mark, are we sustainable at this point?
I think, it's funny. I'm not going to – I hate stealing other people's lines, but you are what your record is. And it looks like the record is 500 or it's just a game under. And I'm the guy that predicted 92 wins. And I don't know. I just before I got on the show, I wanted to look to see what their overall, like their wins and losses and how they came bunched up. They have 2 4-game winning streaks. They also have 2 4-game losing streaks and 1 3-game losing streaks. So when you talk about streaky, yeah, they're streaky that way. And if they sustain that all season, they're going to be a 500 team. I love the fact that they're hitting, though, because, listen, baseball is still an entertainment product, and nobody wants to see a 0-0 game in the 8th inning with nobody hitting. I was very impressed on their performance against the Dodgers this weekend. I did not expect them to do what they did. And honestly, I'm kind of angry and mad that they blew yet another game late. They should have had a 4-game sweep. You're at that point now. I'm not going to be forgiving and say, well, I had them going 2-5 on the trip. Is there false hope he needs time? I'm going to get onto that in a second, Dad, because I'm really concerned about that as well. But just because they were, 5-2 on the trip when you thought they were going to be 2-5, and they lose last night in spectacular fashion again, I don't forgive them for that. They should have swept. They should have swept the Dodgers, man. And as for Bryce Harper, the dude is raking big time, and he's hitting the ball, and he leads the league in extra base hits right now, and his average is at or near 300 right now. All great things, but that tear, eventually, you got to fix it, and maybe as an outfielder versus a pitcher, it might not be as traumatic, but there's going to be time that's missed, and the Phillies need to make a decision when they are going to shut him down. And honestly, if they play the way that they're playing now throughout the season, and they are in the hunt all season, they're not going to shut him down. They're not going to shut him down. But if there's a point where they lose 15 out of 23 and they just blow off the face of the earth, you got to shut the dude down. You got to get him fixed and get him ready for hopefully the next season. But this is not an easy injury to come back from. This is serious stuff. And yeah, he can miss significant time, and that will be the worst thing that you could do for this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ohtani had a UCL tear as well when he first came over and was pitching and hitting, and he went to just straight DH for a while. But eventually he had to have surgery. Eventually he did. Once the Angels that season were out, he had to go for surgery and get shut down for the rest of the season. And he was able to come back as a hitter and then eventually as a pitcher again. Pitching is a little different than the outfield, but, he might never be the same right fielder again if you let this continue on for too long. But again, like you said, Mark, if we're in it, he's going to play. And he's going to keep getting trotted out there. And I don't know. It's a scary thought process that if he plays out this year, makes it any worse or it doesn't get any better, then he has the surgery in the offseason. And then next year, we're right back to square one with missing time with Bryce Harper. I don't know. It's crazy.
Here's another concern that you brought up. What if he can't throw anymore?
Yeah.
Do you DH him or do you move him to first base?
Still got to throw at first base occasionally.
Because you got players on this team right now that honestly shouldn't be in the field every day.
Yeah. And
you're hurting your fielding with Harper being your DH. And he needs to play in the field. He can't. I don't know. Things to consider. I think this problem is bigger than what people are talking about right now, and it's something that the organization needs to look at, and Bryce needs to look at as well. I mean, it's his body. He needs to do what's best for him health wise. At the same time, we don't want him to destroy his arm to the point where he's going to miss a season and a half, because that would be a big issue.
I mean, the 5-2 West Coast trip masked it. The fact that he's leading the league in extra base hits is masking the issue right now. So I think that's why we're not really talking about, or most people aren't talking about the Bryce Harper injury as much as they should. But yeah, it scares me a lot. Yesterday, again, so we say, is this sustainable? We all agree, probably not sustainable, big picture. So how can they do it? And yesterday was I know I've been hard on the starting pitching, and starting pitching's pitched inconsistently but better than expected. in my opinion. But yesterday was still the hole that I thought was a hole at the beginning of the season, before the season started. Corey Knebel, he's pitched pretty solid out of the bullpen. But again, I think what's that, his second or third blown save this season. He is not a closer, Corey Knebel, in my opinion. And I think that might not rear its ugly head because it's just one loss out of 4 against the Dodgers. But if you put that out over the whole season, there's going to be many more opportunities like that Corey Knebel are going to blow games for us. And I'm concerned about, I know our bullpen hasn't pitched as bad as last year, but it's slowly starting to fall down a little bit, starting to return law. I think they said during the telecast yesterday, our bullpen ERA is 10th in just the NL. That is something that concerns me. For as good as the bullpen has been talked about, that just shows how bad it used to be. We are the 10th bullpen in the NL. That's not good, guys. And that is why this is not – you're not going to be able to score 12 runs every single game. I mean, when your bullpen is like this, you kind of need to. Jason.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I have to kind of disagree with you on this. Because I'm not as concerned about their bullpen. I think their bullpen has been much better, and I don't look at. Yeah, they have the 10th ERA, but once again, ERA is a situational number that you can't really quantify. You know, somebody can have one bad game and give up 5 runs as a reliever, and your ERA is going to be bad for 3 weeks, as opposed to a starter who goes 7 or 8 innings and you know, a lot quicker that number, you know, that crooked number comes down. Corey Knebel, I do agree, he's not a closer. He has closed in his career, and he's had some success. I wouldn't say that the Phillies have anybody on this staff right now other than Sir Anthony Dominguez, who I believe should be groomed to be the closer. I'm not saying he's there yet, but they might be forced to actually make that switch and have Knebel be the setup guy, because Knebel has had most of his success as a setup guy. He is a great pitcher. He really is. He has great stuff, but I agree. Sometimes he gets, you know, he goes through a stretch where he struggled. Listen, all relievers do, but I look at this relievers as being less of an issue than the starting pitching, because Aaron Nola has looked better, and Zach Wheeler is starting to turn the corner, but I'm still not sold on the other guys. I mean, Ranger, he's starting to make a believer in me. He had another good game the other night, but like I said, this team is built on offense. So I think we have what we have with our pitching staff. As Mark said, I'll steal Mark's thing. We are what we are. I do think that, like I said, if they do make any change at the closing position, I would like to see Sir Anthony at least get a shot at it. But I was saying coming into the year that I wanted to add another guy after they had signed Knebel. And I know when they signed Castellanos and went over the tax that they really weren't going to spend any more money. So I kind of knew that it wasn't going to happen. But obviously the guy that I would have liked to have saw them get was Kimbrel, and he's having a great year. Now I believe he is now with – what team did he go to?
Mark, are you concerned with the bullpen or the starting pitching or any of the pitching in general? Because
I don't like the fact that they waste great pitching from our starters. But Nola pitched yesterday, and he pitched another decent game, right? And I didn't watch much, if at all. I was listening on the radio. I don't like that. I don't like wasting phenomenal pitching performances, because you don't know when you're going to get them from your starters. And your bullpen, I think, to kind of Jason's point, their high ERA is tied into just a couple games out there. And I think overall they've been pretty good. Now, it's up to Joe Girardi to put these pitchers in positions to succeed. I mean, I don't want to sound like Andy Reid with that, but it's the truth. Like I don't think they should be forcing Corey Knebel as a closer because he was the big bullpen acquisition over in the offseason. So now I'm going to push you into the closer position. He hasn't been really since 2017 when he went to the All-Star game with Milwaukee, and he had like 39 saves or something like that. So you're not putting him in a position to succeed if you're kind of forcing him in there. Do you do a bullpen by committee? I mean, you don't have a closer on your team, so I don't think you have a choice. And until you develop somebody like a Sir Anthony Dominguez and start putting him in there a little bit more and a little bit more. But honestly, they should have come a little more prepared this offseason, and maybe they should have signed Kimbrel or should have signed a closer instead of, forcing people into roles that they are just not comfortable with or excel in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hey, we had somebody at Hector Neris, and he's pitching to a tune of a .54 ERA right now.
I've been seeing that, and hey, good for Hector. He needed to change the scenery. I mean, he really did. So I don't see that being a bad thing that the Phillies let him go. I mean, what are you going to keep him forever? Are you going to be like Vince Velasquez and keep him forever when she got rid of him 3 seasons prior?
Can we talk about speaking of closers and not just closers, but guys that have electric stuff? You see this guy on the Cardinals? The St. Louis Cardinals, to me, have one of the best farm systems when it comes to developing pitchers.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Albert Pujols' great.
I thought so too.
I really thought you were setting yourself up for a joke there.
No, so if you look at the St. Louis Cardinals, right, over the past 5 years of guys that they've brought up, right, they have Jordan Hicks, who hits 103 on the radar. He was their closer last year. He's now a starter, by the way, guys. Right? So now they have Gallegos as their closer, but they have another kid, this Ryan Helsley, 104 on the gun. Like, they have guys coming at you at all angles, throwing 100 miles an hour, and it's like they don't miss a beat. Like, I'm just saying, I'm looking at the opposite of the Phillies, of a team that actually develops pitching in-house, and they have all these guys, and they just bring them up. We don't have that. We talked about that last show, about the fact that the Phillies don't have that guy. Now, yes, I know you mentioned the guys in low A, like the pain.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll be fine. But
what I'm more mentioning is the fact that, and you've talked about it on previous shows, at least they flipped who's running the farm system. So maybe these guys in low A, we start to maybe the development process is changing down there. And that's what I'm talking about.
Because you have to hope so, because that's the way that you actually get better. Yeah. You can't fill every hole by going out and going over the tax and signing every single guy. You just can't do it. And you're going to have times where you have an injury. So, like, I'm just making an example. Say, like, a Bryce Harper does go down. A lot of teams have that young prospect that they could bring up. And I'm not saying he's going to be Bryce Harper, but he'll hit the ball and you won't like lose as much. It won't be like going from like to our center fielders that we have right now. Like,
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up the center fielders. I know Mark loved it, and I know you probably saw the tweets about it, Jason. Odubel Herrera, I know he's hitting close to 300, and I know he takes a lot of crap. But man, that's not sustainable. 298 Odubel Herrera, and you see that by yesterday. And Jason, if you missed it, a ball was thrown between his legs, and he swung and missed at it. Like, literally between his legs, and he swung at it. And we know he has a big, wide open stance. That thing was 4 feet off the plate, and he swung at it. Mark.
Yeah, I think Major League Baseball tweeted out that video and mocked it. I mean, the organization that he plays under mocked him. I was in a little bit of a fight in one of the Facebook Phillies groups that I'm in that was praising Odubel Herrera's performance this year. And please, he is the most fundamentally deficient baseball player that I've seen play for the Phillies in a long time. And just look at his book of history with us, his fielding, his base running, some of the pitches he swings at. Like his head isn't in the game a lot. Listen, he's talented. Don't get me wrong. He's made an all-star team. He can prove that he can hit the ball and hit the ball out of the yard. But he's a dumb baseball player, and he has the baggage to go with it outside of baseball. And they bought him out, and then for some reason brought him back because they didn't feel that they had enough center fielders to get them through the season. And it just putting all your money on Odubel Herrera to be your guy this year is not a smart bet at all. And we really need to get Moniak back or somebody else back. This guy is not sustainable, Phil. He's going to make a boneheaded play. He's going to cost a game, and it's not like he's talented enough where you can say, "Oh, that's Odubel being Odubel." He's not that guy. He's not that guy. He's infuriating, is what he is. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I certainly do.
I mean, he's infuriating as a baseball player. But I look at it, I'm like, I was gonna say, has Joe Girardi, saved his job for the season for a while longer? And I was gonna say that because I've been looking at the schedule, and literally through June, middle of June, our schedule is murderer's row. And I look at it, you say Mickey Moniak,
he's coming back. So Mickey Moniak, I have some news on him. He actually will take batting practice today for the first time. So he is getting close. Yes,
that's a step in the right direction. If Mickey Moniak is not the guy, that means the Phillies, if they're going to contend this year and make a run, they need a center fielder, they need another starting pitcher, and they need a closer, legitly, to really make a legit contending shot, not the last wild card spot out in the first round of the playoffs. You look at the Phillies schedule here. We're going to we got San Diego and the Dodgers at home. San Diego's the second place team. The Dodgers, we just beat them, but they're first place. The Braves, I know they're in second place right now or tied with us in second place, whatever. They're still a good team. The Mets, first place. San Francisco, second place. The Angels, first place. The Brewers, first place. Arizona, second place. So we don't face a team that's not in first or second place until June 13th against Miami. And then we go Miami and Washington for 7. So till mid-June, we have literally, if we're still one game under 500 at that stretch, that's probably pretty good. But if this team is legitimately a contender, they're going to have to make some really major moves. Has Joe Girardi saved his job, or does it not even really matter at this point because they are what they are, which is an average team?
I'm convinced at this point Joe's not going anywhere.
For the whole season?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think that Dombrowski's going to ride with Joe. I think they're, they like Joe. I think that when it's all said and done, Joe can say, well, we did go out and sign these guys. They just underperformed. Like, that's going to be the excuse. There's always a way out in these excuses. Like, we see it with the Sixers, and I know we'll get into the Sixers, but
we'll get to them in a minute.
I don't see Joe going unless they go on a major, a major, what's the word I'm looking for?
Nosedive.
Implosion. And then Bryce.
The schedule is tough enough where they could go on that kind of an implosion.
Well, if that happens, then maybe he is gone. But I think if that does happen, I would at that point I would have Harper get the surgery and just let's come back next year fully healthy. Because what is the sense of him playing and getting making the injury worse or not making it worse, but just trying to, prolong that injury if we're not going to contend? I ask you guys that. What is the sense? What, so we can just see Bryce Harper and be excited that he's playing? Like, the guy is signed long-term. It's not like he's like, this is his last year. And it's not like the Phillies, have a team that's world beaters here. I mean, they're not. I think we all know that they are average at best. They're not a team yet that's ready. They just don't have the firepower as far as their pitching is probably the biggest glaring hole, and their hitting is inconsistent. I mean, we're praising the hitting, but don't forget, just 2 weeks ago, we were bitching about the hitting. That's what I mean. So that's what happens with streaky guys, and that's what you got to live with. But I do not want to have Bryce Harper prolong this injury to the point where he's out next year. That does nothing for this team. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I think as long as the team is in it, and it's way early, so they're definitely in it right now, he's going to play. And the other thing, too, is he's going to play because he sells tickets. Honestly, who's coming to go see the Phillies without Bryce Harper? I mean, who's going to do it? So, and as for Girardi, I mean, unless he goes on a spectacular nosedive this next couple of weeks, I think his job is probably safe until we get to the point where it's looking like he's going to be, not make the playoffs or be a couple games under 500. They might get rid of him at the middle of September, end of September, because I don't think he's Dombrowski's guy, and I don't think he wants him here. But he's in a contract that you can get rid of him, but it's going to cost you money that you've already spent on these players that over the tax. So, this is out of Middleton's pocket. How much money are you asking me to spend without any return on it? And you're asking me to pay for Girardi when he's not here for several years and hire another, high-profile manager maybe.
That's actually a really good transition because you're talking about paying the manager, and when you get rid of him, the same thing. It was interesting. I didn't realize this. So, we were going to talk Sixers and Daryl Morey, saying basically run it back. We're still paying Brett Brown, and next year we'll still be paying Brett Brown. So, Glenn Rivers, the fact that he'd probably be back is because does an ownership group want to pay 3 managers? Because if they fired Glenn Rivers, they'd be paying Glenn Rivers, Brett Brown, and their replacement. So that'd be 3 managers they'd be paying, and they're not going to do that. So that might be a little bit, you're saying there, do they really want to pay Girardi and somebody else? Well, do the Sixers really want to pay 3 guys? So, it kind of play. It's got to be really tough. You really got to really see complete failure from a leader of a team to want to pay him for multiple years and to not work for your team.
Yeah, but I think the writing is on the wall that they should have gotten rid of Doc Moore.
Doc Moore.
His name's not Doc anymore. It's Glenn. We are just referring to him.
Okay, well, they should have got rid of Glenn Rivers, and it's idiotic. I understand the philosophy.
Let's transition to Sixers here real quick. So, obviously, there was the Friday presser. Glenn and Daryl spoke to the media. And honestly, the crux of it all was they're basically going to be running it back. Glenn's going to be welcomed back. They're going to try to bring back James Harden. They're going to try to improve the bench, and they're going to say that this core is capable of winning a title. Is this just post the season ending and they spoke really quickly and this might not be true? Or do we really believe that that's what Daryl Morey is thinking right now, that if we tweak this a little bit more, this is a winning team and organization right now? Mark, because you haven't really got to talk too much Sixers yet.
I mean, listen, Daryl and Glenn sat at the podium together. What's Daryl going to say? Well, listen, Glenn's not going to come back next year. Hey, we're going to fire Glenn and buy him out. I think what they really are hoping is that they come to them and say, I want out of my contract so I can go coach in L.A., or I'm quitting to become a broadcaster. I think they really, really want that to happen. And when you have guys like Howard Eskin asking questions every night and agitating the hell out of Glenn Rivers, maybe he'll say, you know what, I've had enough of the city of Philadelphia and I got to get out. I think that's what they're hoping for, but it's probably not going to happen because I'm sure he wants his money. I mean, what is it, an $8 million a year contract or something like that? I mean, he wants his money. And I guess they're going to run it back. I don't know if I would want Harden back. I think that experiment failed. And unless I would love for him to opt out of his contract, or
here's the scenario.
We can mislead him and say, yeah, we're going to sign you long term. I'll sign you to a 3-year deal, but at like $15 million a year. How about that? What do you want, longevity, or you want your money?
So all right. So his player option for next year, guys, it's $47 million. Okay. The max contract, it's like $250 million over 5 years. No, so the theory is that no one's going to give him a max deal. The theory is that no one's going to want to trade for him. But then, I love him. Let's go to the phone guys. Actually, breaking a lot of news lately and getting some credit for it. They put out a tweet. Don't we think that somebody out there would just trade for James Harden for the name value alone? Does his name still have that name value alone? And I was originally going to come on this show and say, the plan was, he's not going to sign for a 3 or $15 million a year deal. But if you can get James Harden instead of 1 year at 47, if you can get him, I forget what Kyle Lowry signed with the Heat. I think it was 3 years, $30 million a year. $30 million sounds like a lot, but when max deals are $45, $50 million a year, $30 million is kind of a discount. So would you be more willing to have James Harden 3 years at $30 million or 1 year at 47? That was where I was going to take the conversation. But then I see that tweet. Is his name value going to create a market for him, maybe? And that got me thinking literally 5 minutes before the show. Is that legitimately a possibility? Would a mid-level team, a team like Atlanta, or great strip clubs down there as well, supposedly, these mid-level teams, the teams that fit the Cleveland Cavaliers, teams that are in that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the playoff chase every year, would one of them be willing to break the bank, to sell tickets and maybe take a chance on a James Harden?
No, because look at his last 2 stops. They've been utter failures for those teams. And I think you're stuck with him. I think let this dude opt into his 1 year. I guess run it back, maybe tweak the bench a little bit here or there, and run it back and cut loose this guy at the end of the year, man. I wouldn't give him more than this year. I don't think he's going to come back and be better than he was during our time this year.
Bench doesn't need tweaked. I pulled up there are people that are locked into contracts for next year. The bench needs complete work because there is nobody. So you've got Harden if he opts in, Harrison and Embiid. Danny Green's got a non-guaranteed contract. Danny Green will not be back. Unfortunately, that injury is just he might not even play again. You got Furkan, Matisse, and Niang, Maxey, and Springer. They're all on guaranteed contracts next year. That's it. Isaiah Joe, Reed, and Bassie are team options. Shake Milton has a club option as well. Not team options. Isaiah Joe, Reed, and Bassie are under non-guaranteed contracts. So they could go. They'll probably be back because they're cheap. But, there's really only like 10 or 12 guys that are actually under contract. So not only does the bench need retweaked, there is no players on the team right now. So there's a lot that needs to happen. And having $47 million locked up in James Harden, you might take a chance at 3 years, $30 million. It'll give you some money and flexibility to maybe improve the bench. Would you be willing to do that in that sense then, Mark? Yeah, I got to take 3 years of Harden, but that $15 million a year can be used to get 2 more really solid bench pieces. And then maybe we have a better chance.
I would only do that if in year 2 they trade him as an expiring contract or 1 year left on the contract. That's the only, and I would tell him, say, listen, unless you're lights out, we're going to get rid of you at the trade deadline of the following year. That's how it's got to be.
You tell him that, and then he'll just, sit out like Ben Simmons did.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. I'm trying to find out. I think it's stupid. He's tanked, man. He doesn't have it anymore. He's just from being a top 75 player, he's now just an above average player. And you can get other above average players out there at a cost that isn't James Harden cost. You know what I'm saying? I'd love for them to try to find a way to add Bradley Beal. I'd love to find a way for them to get Seth Curry and Andre Drummond back. And I'd love for them to kind of part ways with a couple guys on this team that just you've seen enough of them And, I'll put it out there. Matisse Thybulle might be one of them. It might be somebody that maybe you can get something for if you decided to trade him.
I have a question. Do you think James Harden's struggle here, obviously in his short time so far with the Sixers, is more him lacking physical skill, or is it more him lacking mental skill? Is he struggling mentally? Is he having a mental issue? Is he struggling with his energy level? What is the bigger issue? Is it that he has no skill anymore? Because I don't believe that. I don't believe somebody can put up 31 in a playoff game and then you can look at that same person and say they have no skill or they've lost.
I did say it 100 times. The day we traded for him, the day we started talking about trading for him, that you never see superstars traded at the deadline and that team go on to win a title that year. It takes time to really win, to mesh two superstars of Joe Embiid and James Harden, to mesh them together. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't. It's never.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, because I don't believe.
I think it's part that, but I also think it's part that he isn't a top 75. He might be better than we saw, but he's not a 30-point a game scorer anymore. He's better than the 15 games that we were getting, 15 points a game we were getting from him, but he's not much better than that. He's not washed, realistically speaking, but he's never going to be that all-star level.
But we already knew that. We already knew that.
We
knew that before the trade happened. If you didn't, then you weren't watching basketball.
The problem is James Harden, the player, the person, if he's not scoring 30 points a game, I don't know if his personality fits in a championship winning team. Like, he wants to be that 35-point a guy in his head, maybe still somehow, and he can't be that guy.
Well, I agree.
I don't know if he knows how to win.
I'm just curious because all I keep hearing is James Harden's washed. James Harden's washed, and I don't believe he's washed. I think this is more of he just might not be a good fit for this team, and if that's the case, that happens. I mean, you can't force somebody into a situation if they're not meant to be in that situation, is what I'm getting at. We all wanted it. We all wanted a trade. James Harden, absolutely. I would have done that trade 100 times over because I can't stand Ben Simmons. I don't give a shit. He's gone. Thank you. Okay. So, we got James Harden. He failed. I think you move on. I'm with Mark. I don't want this guy. I think you look for another option. I want a Dame Lillard. I want a Dame Lillard. I want somebody that's going to put this team
I want him more than anybody.
over the top.
Mark brings up Bradley Beal. The problem is the Bradley Beal trade is going to require Maxey probably going.
I was going to say.
Is he under contract or is he a free agent now after?
Same situation as Harden. You got the player option. Sign and trade. You're not going to swap Beal for Harden. That's not going to happen.
I'm gonna get to what Jason said about is it physical or is it mental, and I think with Harden it's a little bit of both, and I think he's the type of guy that basketball came so easy to him he could roll out of bed, go to the game and score 30 and dish off 15 assists and they can win by 15. Now that he's a little bit older, if he's still trying to play and live his life the way he did in his 20s, in his mid-30s, your body, whether you're an athlete, a construction worker, an office worker, whoever, just does not react the same way. Guys, tell me about your 20s and how you guys partied all night and then you were on time for work the next morning. And tell me how that worked out in your 30s and 40s, because you can't maintain that. Jason's chuckling.
I just lived that the other day.
That's my whole entire weekend, dude.
So, but I mean, this is the truth, man. You're like, he can't do it the way he used to do it. And then maybe the hamstring thing, he's like, I don't understand why my body's not healing the way it was in my 20s. Well, you got to get a better diet and a better workout plan and maybe you don't go out to the strip club 6 nights a week. And not to say that he's doing that or anything like that. I mean, he's still a young man. He can go out and have dinner and hang out with his friends and stuff like that. But like, you have a responsibility. I have a responsibility at work. I can't be out all night and then come to work and expect to be at 100% for my employer. And my employer is going to be pissed if I keep doing that over and over and over again. I mean, this is kind of like I'm trying to do like a real world example here. That's the same thing here. Phil, you had a kid at your place that parties the night before, and he's just not. He's in work the next day, but he ain't making the pizzas fast enough, or he ain't making the sandwiches fast enough. You're like, yo, what the hell? Hey, I'm glad that you're here, but I need you at 100%.
It's like the girl that called out on May 6th. I had a girl call out on May 6th. May 5th was Cinco de Mayo. She's Spanish. She called out. She said she didn't feel well. Obviously, I know you're out partying on Cinco de Mayo. You know,
well,
you can't do that. You know what I mean? You can't sustain like that. Look,
don't you think somebody that's driven, or maybe this is where I've read the room wrong on James Harden, but if I'm James Harden and I know that I'm not the same player that I was in my 20s, but I still have talent, I'm hitting the gym as hard as I can. I'm going to the gym 2 hours a day, and I'm busting my ass, and I'm going to get better physically. I mean,
we've seen videos of him working out after games to keep his,
I'm just saying that's what I would do if I would. I'm just looking at it. Maybe that's.
We're going to hit overtime on the show for sure for a few minutes because I got one other topic to talk about briefly. But
I wanted to talk about Jimmy Butler real quick before we transition.
Okay, so we have 2 more topics. I want to throw, and we don't even have to talk about it. I've talked about it, and Jason has, made sure to remind everybody I've talked about the extra moves. And I didn't watch much of the game last night, but Dallas beating Phoenix last night. They made an ancillary move. They went out and got Spencer Dinwiddie for their bench. Okay? They made the move necessary to not just help improve their team, but help improve the second unit. Daryl Morey needs to make sure this offseason he's not so focused on locking up James Harden long-term and how to make the James Harden thing fit. He better be focused on the bench. He better be focused on the rest of the team. Because, it cost them Kristaps Porzingis, but Kristaps Porzingis isn't who he used to be. It was all Dallas had to do was match salaries to get Spencer Dinwiddie from Washington. And his salary was only like $17 million. So it would have cost you Matisse and Seth. It would have cost you Matisse and Danny Green to get a guy that dropped 30 points off the bench last night for Dallas. Was there anybody on our bench that was going to come close to dropping 20 this playoff run? No. So we need to make sure that Daryl Morey spends time not just on the stars, but on the whole team this offseason. Sorry, you want to talk about Jimmy Butler? Go ahead.
Well, real quick to that, I mean, he's shown that he can do things with the bench with Seth Curry, with Andre Drummond, and I mean, obviously he let that bench go for Harden, but I think he needs to go back to where he was successful with that. So I do agree with you. The Heat series, they lost it when they decided to let Jimmy Butler go because he intimidated Brett Brown and Ben Simmons too much. And I love Jimmy Butler. I loved him as a Sixer. I love him after being out of the organization. I loved him before. The guy's got something. He's got that intangible that he's a winner, and he makes people uncomfortable because all he wants to do is win. This guy, that's all he wants. He's a strange guy. He's definitely a strange guy, but he makes people uncomfortable. And sometimes, I know me as a manager of people, sometimes you have to make your staff uncomfortable to get them to perform. And if your organization is not prepared to handle somebody like that, it could backfire. But they weren't ready to move on from Brett Brown and Ben Simmons at that time. I wish they would have. And I think the other thing too is that the pieces that they traded for Tobias Harris, I think they felt that we're going to have pretty successful NBA careers, and really they haven't. So they felt the need that they had to keep Harris, and him coming down the hallway saying Tobias Harris over me. I got to be honest, I loved it. Called out the organization on making a very, very wrong decision.
Mark, is there a scenario in your head? Because I'm going to be rooting now that Phoenix is out. I'm rooting for Miami. I want to see Jimmy Butler get a title. Jimmy Butler does not win a title this year in Miami. Is there even a 1% scenario chance that we see a deal with Miami? Because James Harden has been linked to Miami in the past. Can we find a way to get James Harden to Miami and Jimmy Butler back to Philly? Or is that ship sailed, bringing Jimmy Butler in Philly?
That would be a fantastic 1-for-1 deal, but I don't think Miami would do that deal. I think Harden wants to go to Miami, but I don't think they want anything to do with him. I'm rooting for Jimmy. I'm also rooting for Jalen Brunson too, with Dallas, who's had a really great playoff, and I believe
paid big buckets this offseason.
Yeah, he's already said he's not taking a hometown discount, and that's a guy I wouldn't mind seeing come into the Sixers.
Yeah,
I would not mind him at all coming to the Sixers.
Absolutely. All right. So we got to wrap this up with, unfortunately, more sad news. And I don't want to spend more than like 5 minutes before we wrap this show up here. But David West, former Philly, passed away this weekend, 57 years old, cancer. Another member of a Phillies organization that played on that AstroTurf, cancer, passes away. I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, guys. Jason, is there anything to the fact that literally so many of these Phillies players and organizations, who even knows if any of the grounds crews about they don't really talk about that. If anybody else has ever had anything, first off, David West, a great part of my childhood growing up, but also, it's a sad situation there. Thoughts on David West and this whole situation with players from the Phillies organization passing away.
I mean, what was it? 8 guys now?
7, maybe. I don't know. 6. Okay, 6. Vukovic.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's something to be said about it. I mean, I don't think you can, say that there's nothing wrong. But David West, the player, I mean, the guy was. We were talking about it offline before the show. Like, he was a comedian. Like, he's a guy that got the locker room, going. And definitely a sad state of affairs for the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies have lost so many guys, like Darren Dalton. I mean, obviously, Darren Dalton was the leader of that team. But, I see so many people coming out and speaking about David West, and more of the things I hear about are not what he did on the field. It's as what he was as a person. So, I mean, thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family, and just another one gone too soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's way too many players and coaches from that 93 team that aren't here anymore. Fregosi, Vukovic, Dalton, Batiste, and now David West. I think there's something to it. Listen, I lived down there for the bulk of my life. That stadium is that stadium is built on a landfill, and God only knows what the hell was in that landfill before they built on it. It was swamp and landfill. The AstroTurf that's on that field, the early turfs, it was basically a plastic, and they played 81 games. On that field in the dead of summer, 100 degrees, 120 degrees, you would see the heat radiate off of the ground. What the hell chemicals was in that plastic? And then you look at the type of players that have this very unique brain cancer. It's glioblastoma or glioblastoma. You know what I'm talking about. They are the players where their heads are closest to the ground. Your catchers, Dalton, Johnny Oates, and your pitchers, Ken Brett, Tug McGraw, David West, and then throw in Vuk. Vuk was on that team as a coach, player, administrator, whatever, for 30-plus years, the whole life of the vet. So he was always out there. And I think there is a correlation, and I think there's a hell of a story to tell from an investigative journalist who wants to dive into something like that. I really think there is, and I've been banging that drum for a while now on Twitter, and I was tweeting a couple things about that yesterday with a couple guys out there. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence, and it's a damn shame because it's the really good players and the nice players and the guys that we really liked and looked up to. I guess it is like nice guys do finish last. Like guys like Dalton, like he did not deserve to go out like that. Guys like David West, they don't deserve. Guys like Vukovic, who spent his whole life for the Phillies. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Well, unfortunately, we'll end it with that somber note there. But thoughts and prayers to the David West family. Everybody have a great Monday. Thanks for tuning in today. Yeah, everybody have a great day. I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to get you so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to end on such a negative note. Do we have something positive we could promote before we check out?
Ring the bell.
Yeah,
we can ring the bell. Let's ring the bell.
How about we make fun of these spammers coming in? I got people coming into the Twitch comments. Buy followers, primes, and viewers at blah blah blah.com. Man, get the hell out of here, you spammers!
Ring the bell.
Yeah,
ring the. Smash the bell, Jason. Let's smash it, baby.
Right, that's right. His name is no longer Doc Rivers. It's Glenn Rivers. We'll end it on that. We'll make fun of that.
Okay.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.